Hello, and welcome to VistaTalks, interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world. I am your host for today, María Roa, and I am happy to introduce you to Teresa Toronjo. She is a localization leader with more than a decade of experience across Europe and Southeast Asia, having worked with global brands such as Workday, and Malt. Today, she serves as a senior manager localization and internationalization at Malt, where she has built and optimized localization workflows across marketing, legal, product, and customer teams, managing complex processes in 5 languages across 9 markets. Last year, she led the Internationalization Marketplace Initiative. She also teaches at Localization Academy and frequently speaks about stakeholder engagement, workflow orchestration, and the evolving role of AI in localization. Teresa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Maria. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great, Teresa. We have so much to cover, so we will go straight into the interview. Let me ask you the first question. What have been the biggest efficiency gains, and where do you believe human reviewers remain absolutely essential?
I love this question because I have some numbers to share that I think are going to be impactful. But so let me start with that. Actually, we've seen a 99% increase in the volume that we process, which is huge, but we have seen a 7% decrease in cost. And that is the efficiency side of the story. But in my mind, the real value is not what you save, but what do you do with that? Because it's not like, okay, we take that money and we put it back into our pocket, or we take that time and we, I don't know, do something completely different with it. But maybe before we were doing a lot of work on low risk or low impact content. Now we can really focus on really high value and high impact content. And I have a perfect example because this month we are launching the Malt Tech Trends 2026, and that's a report. And the French localization team, which is an external team, so it's 2 freelancers, they have worked on every piece of content for this report. And we have not used AI or machine translation for this, but they have worked on everything. They have worked on the report itself, but also the landing pages. They have worked on the emails that are sent out to the clients, the mini reports, so everything related to the report, and it's many different types of assets. A human was doing that. So I guess the question isn't whether it's a human or a machine to me. It's more when you have a hybrid approach, what does that free to, and what can you do with that time that you're freeing up, that money that you're freeing up instead?
That's super interesting because I agree. Everyone is thinking is like, what is the money? I mean, how much money can we save, but not what can we do with the money, which is actually the best approach. So what can we do with the money? Let me ask you.
Yeah, I mean, so it depends on what you want to do. The way I see it, and depends on what type of content you're working with. So, for example, for product, where before we were doing a lot of reviews on content that was out of context, so in the tools itself. Now we are letting a lot of the content just stay in the tool with the automations, and what we're doing is shifting that into in-context review. So we're taking up that time and we're actually looking at the content where it lives and where the users are interacting with it, or we are improving our glossary and our foundations, or we are changing our style guide so it's more digestible by AI agents. And of course, it's not what maybe translators and linguists had envisioned when they started in this role or career. But I think it's really powerful for companies to think, instead of hiring new talent, to give the talent that they already work with the opportunity to, with that same money that they were spending somewhere else, giving them the opportunity to work on other tasks that will also improve the services that they can offer to other clients as well. So I see it as a win-win situation for both, for the company, which gets professionals that really care about the content that maybe have been working with us for years. They really know our product and our company and our values. And on the other hand, you're setting the ground and letting them explore and learn new things related to AI and automation that will improve their career. Yeah.
100%. That's a win-win situation. You're right. Um, I would like to ask you something else, and this might be a hard question, but how do you define success in localization today? Um, which one do you think are the metrics that matter most to your stakeholders? Because you know stakeholders are always looking for metrics.
Yeah. And I think, and I've been guilty before of saying, we have to adapt the language and the metrics that our stakeholders work with. It's like translating what we do into the way in which they think and in which they work so that our stakeholders can understand our value. And and I think the more and more I work in localization, the more I realize that it shouldn't be a translation, but it should be a shift in the way in which we think, and we should move away from metrics that, I mean, we still track, like turnaround time, cost per word, quality scores, and those, I'm not saying just chuck them out of the window. But instead of taking those and trying to make them resonate with revenue, conversion, click-through rate, acquisition, I don't know, traffic. Instead of taking that and trying to force it into a shoe that maybe doesn't fit, to actually start thinking differently. So not saying, how do I translate this into business outcomes, but really using business metrics to shape the way in which we set our strategy from the beginning. And I have done this before, and I've even told people before, you need to take your localization metrics and make sure that they resonate with the business. And no, I don't think that anymore. I think that it's not a matter of converting what we work with. It's a matter of really embracing those metrics that the business work with and making them part of the localization strategy and the localization roadmap. And like I said, it's conversion, it's revenue, it's traffic, and those should be our metrics as well. But yeah, that's maybe more on things that you can count. There is another metric that I find really interesting, and more I see it, and it's how often are you invited to the room to make a decision? How often do people reach out to you before a decision has been made because they want you to help shape that decision? And that's not in any dashboard. But I was thinking about it the other day because, well, they asked me about something and I was like, oh, like they should have thought about this. And then I was like, no, but this is good because they are asking me to help them make that decision. And this is a change to the way it was in which it was before. And I have had that with marketing, but I've also had it with legal, where they have come and they've said, hey, Teresa, we have this problem and we need to rethink the way we're doing it. What do you think we should be doing? And now that I see this happening more and more, I'm like, okay, that to me, that is a really important metric because it means that I have positioned myself and localization in a way that we don't just execute on decisions that have been made, but that actually we are helping shape those decisions and that strategies. And that I find that very important.
I think that it's super important. I think actually that is a great metric that now one, or at least I hadn't thought about it before, but getting people to think about you before the decision is made, asking localization what they think or how they think things should be done or how those things might affect you or affect your markets. It's super important. It means they're thinking about you. They're thinking about localization, which is something that probably a few years ago we couldn't have dreamed of. So I think that's very important and very thoughtful. Thank you so much, Teresa. That's something we all should be thinking and wishing for. I don't know how many of our listeners really have that luck, I would say, to be put in that position. That's amazing. Um, you often highlight the importance of cross-functional collaboration. with product marketing, legal, like you just mentioned that, customer care. And we all know that the work does not stop at go live. How do you keep localization visible and valued across the organization after the initial excitement fades? Because, all these things that you're saying, all these, like, they keep asking me, I mean, I bet our listeners would love to know how you do it.
Yeah. I, I guess so. To me, there are two things. One is if the excitement is fading, maybe that's a signal that we are very focused on the outcome rather than the process. And so therefore the project finishes and yeah, we'll get in touch with localization when we need them again. When the excitement doesn't fade, but it stays, it's because it's already embedded in the process and they are thinking about it continuously. So the value will never be lost because where before I had to like push my way into the room and my elbows onto the table and my voice, into the mix of voices that were already discussing a situation and be like, localization is here too. Now it's like, wait a minute, where is Teresa? So, and that takes time, and you don't need to be at every table. And the fact that they're already thinking about that, like where is localization or have we thought about localization, that should be your role. Your role should be that without you being there, they're thinking about it. And it happens to me a lot that at the beginning when I joined, I was working very closely with the product and with the designers. And I would go to like a design jam and I would be like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this part of localization? Have you thought that that icon is not global? Have you thought that, taxes are different in different countries? Have you thought about the complexity of adding um, Unicode in like I see you in there, international components of Unicode, and is that worth it for this design, for this feature? That the developers are going to have to do that. And now I'm not there that often anymore. Maybe I go once a month, once every 2 months. But every now and then a designer will ping me and will tell me like, hey, Teresa, I'm doing this design. I took this into account. I thought about localization and internationalization. Is this assumption correct? I just want to double check with you. So I'm not there and they're thinking about it. And that's your job is to not need to be there in order for localization to have visibility or to have weight. But then there is like the other side, and it is, I kind of feel that there's like two sides to the same coin, and it is how visible we are. Because
Hmm.
how visible we are, and normally it can be just one person or like a small team, it's also how visible localization is. And in the localization industry, people don't love to be visible. We are people that love working with words, with processes, with maybe thinking on data, but we are, and I mean, I generalize, of course, we're not all the same, but we're not marketeers. We're not salespeople doing cold calls for like a day, for a living, right? Um, so all to say that sometimes I feel like because we don't know, we do one of two things. Either we highlight everything that we do and we generate a lot of noise, and in that noise, the value is lost because we don't know when to push and when not to. So we just go
Hmm.
all out. We're like, this is everything we're doing all the time, continuously, and then people are like, oh yeah. Here's Teresa again with her volume or like turnaround time. And then on the other hand, that we do the opposite and we never say what we do. We never highlight what we do because we think this is not important enough. This is not impactful enough. This is not, yeah, we shouldn't be at that table because we haven't earned that. And I feel like we need to strike a really good balance between the two and really pick the moments when we're gonna be like, yes, okay, we did a million things that we're not gonna tell you about, despite it being in the performance review and where it needs to be. But when we do the thing that is really impactful, we are boastful about it and that we really take the space and we really take the energy to say, this was us. We did this. And I think it's a little bit uncomfortable. for people in the localization industry. And it's, if we don't claim that space, nobody is going to say, hey, there is a space here for you to shine. You have to take that for yourself. And it's not always a comfortable situation to be in.
So we should let our audience know they need to find their place, but with a balance, I mean, which is hard, but it is possible.
It is possible. It is possible. And I think mentoring helps a lot to identify those opportunities,
Mhm.
both inside and so mentors from inside your company, but also from outside your company. And if you feel like you're not sure that you're doing a good job at your visibility as the team or the person representing your team, my advice, like practical advice, would be find a mentor that can help you figure that out.
Okay. Is there anywhere where you think they could find a mentor? Do you know any place where they do mentorships?
So Women in Localization has a mentorship program, for example. I actually had a mentor last year for the Malt.com project, so the internationalization project. So I found one specifically for that. So that's what I was looking for, someone to support me with that program, because it was huge visibility and I was uncomfortable with that. And I was also uncomfortable with pushing people to do things. So she helped me with that. And then I also had a sponsor inside my company that was supporting me from the inside. So yeah, 100% recommended, because I am not the Teresa from last year after that experience. Yeah,
That's great. That's
yeah,
great. Yeah, women in localization do lots of things, and sponsor mentorship is one of them.
yeah.
I also recommend them really highly. So that's great. If anyone of our audience needs that, they know women in localization. And women in localization do not only do that service for women, just so all of you
Yeah,
know.
there are men that are mentors and there are men that are mentees as well. So yeah,
Correct. Just letting everyone know so
yeah.
name doesn't confuse. Well, I think we can move now and maybe talk about the AI hype that is all around us. Everyone is crazy to add AI everywhere. And I know that we agree that there's a gap between expectations and reality. How do you help teams adopt AI responsibility without losing sight of quality and context?
It's a really good question that I ask myself every day. I think we're all so before I answer what I think, because I think we are at a moment in the industry where this could be maybe compared to when cat tools started to like appear, and we started to align segments and we could reuse what we had translated before, and that really changed maybe the way in which we thought, the way in which we worked. So I think before I answer that, what I'm gonna say is that I kind of feel like the hype is going away a little bit,
Mhm.
replaced by the real work. So we are now left we're done talking about AI, and now the expectations are through the roof on what we should do. And so what things should actually look like with AI. Um, and there is a big problem, and that is that AI moves really quickly, but we do have a responsibility to build for the future. So we have this tendency, like we buy clothes, we use them for a season, and then we chuck them away. And I'm not like, I don't want to criticize that, of course, but it's when we build something, when we build a program, when we build processes, we also need to be responsible, because AI is not free. It's not free in general. Like you pay for licenses and all, well, despite what people might think. Because I was like, on this feeling that people think AI is free. It's not free, especially when you use it at big scale. You pay a lot for it, but also the environment pays for AI. So there is like a real impact on the environment. And so I think we need to build consciously and responsibly, something that it's scalable and reusable for the future. So not just something for today that we can chuck away tomorrow, because with AI now we can. It's like the fast fashion equivalent of technology a little bit. But if you move too fast, you might end up having to like chuck everything. But if you move too slow, then you're done preparing your processes and then you're behind, because the landscape has changed completely, and now you are left with something that maybe it's not 100% using 100% of the technology that is available. So in my opinion, what this looks like in a day-to-day, so what it really looks like to people like me, talking, like making use of it and adding it to our workflows. And I have had this happen to me 2 weeks ago, so this is like a real example. As you probably know, I am revamping the entire process for the marketing team. So I am redoing it from scratch. And that meant that content was tiered, so into different categories. And basically what that means is that different types of content get different treatment. So where maybe one type of content will be only AI translated, some content will have a light human review, some content will have a heavy human review, and some content will be transcreated.
Okay.
What that basically means is that the same day, I had a conversation with one person where, despite being very human and staying empathetic, I had to be very firm about, we are going to embrace AI for this type of content, and this is how it's going to be. And I second guessed myself, and then I was like, no, this is the decision that you made. You made it for a reason. You are the expert in the room, and this is what we're going to do. And of course, if moving forward, the metrics show that this was not the right choice because it's impacting the business negatively, of course, we will rethink it. But we haven't even started. We can't already be complaining. So we move forward with this. And then 2 hours later, I was talking with another person, and I was defending tooth and nail, like, no, we need a human here. Like, AI can't do this. We need a human on this type of content because of the impact and the visibility on the business. It is not okay to just do it with AI. And in my mind, being that person that is advocating for AI in one conversation and against it the next, and staying credible on both conversations, to me, that might be the hardest, most important part of the transition. So it's not about we do it with AI or we don't. It's about where are we going to use AI and how are we going to make sure that if our decision was not correct, that we can roll back, of course, based on the data, but not just based on the feelings of the people to whom that content is so important, which we also need to understand, and be empathetic and be human about it. But we have to stick to our guns and try it and really see what it can produce and what it can do before we start being scared.
Yeah, I think I completely understand you, because this is something that I feel like people in marketing have been having feeling probably for all our lives, whenever we've been trying um to let people know, like, no, we think we should go this way, and people sometimes think we just do it like kind of like, let me see, now I kind of prefer it, with no backup information. We didn't think about it, and sometimes we did A/B testing, sometimes it is basically because we have studied it before, because whatever, and they're just like, why were you doing it? And we have to fight it and fight it and fight it. And if we're wrong, we'll go back. But we need to test things,
Yeah.
We do need to try it out. But if we are making this decision, it's because we do have the knowledge, we have tried it, uh, we have some information behind to back it up. But when new things come out, we need to try in order to get in the new, in the new wave. It
Yeah.
is the only way to go. So, Teresa, I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you make the best decision with the information that you
With
have,
the
but then you
information that
have
you have at the
to,
moment.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. And if it is wrong, then you'll try the next one. But I'm sure it will be okay. Promise. Promise.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, and I think that's another thing that's important to me is if you're comfortable with it not going well, that means that you did your job. Because
Because
that means
you did
that,
your research. Yeah,
yeah,
you did your
exactly.
research, you did your work, you know what is going on right now, and you know where you can try and where you can't.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, I'm confident and comfortable with this decision I made, which doesn't
Correct.
mean because I can't see the future, unfortunately, right? That'd be
Mhm.
nice. But I didn't use I don't know if you had that growing up, the ball with the eight that you would like shake it and that will
Yeah.
give you like
I know this is very different, but it's the same thing like when we started using internet. I know I'm talking about years ago, and it doesn't seem the same thing, but for us marketers, whenever the internet came, everything was new. It was like, internet? Yeah, yeah, did you need to put ads? And we were like, ads in the internet? We use the TV and the radio, and why would I put ad in a thing that no, and we were like, and then we started pushing, to our executives to like, yeah, we need to put ads in the internet. And they were like, no. And what type of ads and what is internet? You know what I mean? And then we were like, yeah, banner. What is a banner? You know.
exactly.
So I know I'm talking, it sounds like a completely different thing, but it is not. And then at the time, banners were like a hit, and then they came down and then they came up. And then, I mean, it's the same thing. You need to try what type of banners. And then there were some with music, then like the big, huge screen banners that they were prohibited because no one wanted them. It's the same thing. You need to try things
Yeah.
and check what it works and what it doesn't for your brand, and where it works and where it doesn't.
Yeah. And I mean, and if at the end you made all the right choices and it has the impact that you desired and that you wished for, then normally nobody like pats you on the back for it. So that's where you need to take it and say, we did this. Like that's the kind of place where you say we made that very big decision based on really good information and on our knowledge and our expertise. And this is what we have achieved with it. And that is important that it's also highlighted because sometimes it's like, okay, that went well. So that's good enough. It's not good enough. Then, go and brag about it.
Yeah, we need to try. Well,
Yeah.
it's AI. We know what we know for now.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, but you were right about one thing when you started. Well, you were right about everything, but I mean, like, you were especially right about one thing when we just started talking, which is that we've talked about it for too long, and people now are looking for their results. They're like, okay, now what? We need to know more. We talked for too long. We need to see results. We need to see how this works now. We need.
Yeah.
So, okay, sorry, we talked too long. We could talk about AI all day. Um, okay, let's talk about localization strategies now, because you build localization strategies from the ground up in very different markets, Europe, South Asia, and now global SaaS environment. What have these experience taught you about scaling localization for diverse audiences?
I love the word scaling, or I used to love it, and then like everyone started using it for everything, and then I was like, okay, stop now. Like, so it's just like it's it's like AI a little bit, like it's this word that people just throw around,
Yeah.
and the worst, well, not the worst thing, but the thing that the reason why I'm sometimes like, okay, maybe not, it's because people kind of assume that scaling means one thing, right? It's like it's opening more markets, it's adding more languages. Sometimes it does mean that. It's not that it's not what it means. But to me, a more valuable idea of what actually making your product and your infrastructure scalable is to make it more intelligent and more ready for a new market. So it's not about adding. It's about redefining the way in which you work so that when you do go into a new market or into a new region or you will decide to open a new language, you can do it really quickly, efficiently, and in a way that the user is going to be satisfied with it. And what I mean by that is that mm, If you look at different markets, so if you look at Southeast Asia, there is a lot of linguistic diversity. But the vendor ecosystem is less mature. So you have to find more workarounds about how to work with languages and culture. But if you go to Europe, the complexity is on the legal, the compliance, right? Like what can you do and what can't you do in Europe? In terms of your product, what can you, even for the terms and conditions, they will change depending on the country, whether you pre-select them or you should not pre-select them. So, that's a real limitation. And then the SaaS environment, it's about speed. It's, can we have it for yesterday? Is it like, can you have it for tomorrow? And it's like but it's not even ready. Like it's not even developed. What do you want me to have ready? And it's like, yeah, but look, we have the prototypes, Yeah, well, so it's about, before it was waterfall processes, then it was agile, and agile was like this huge change, and now it's continuous, and now we're starting to hear immediate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even continuous now, it's like immediate. It's like the moment you want it and you have it, and it's a little bit like I was saying before. It's like you buy something, you want it now. You don't want to have to wait a week to get your package. You want it delivered within 24 hours to your doorstep. And that is also for localization and for what we do. And that is okay. It's one of the parts of making something scalable, but it's so much more than that. It's, do we have the payment methods? Do we have the compliance that we need? Are we meeting the legal requirements? If we decide that the data is pointing us in a specific directions, are we comfortable that the investment that we're making to try in that new market is worth the cost? Because we've lowered the cost so much that it gets to the point where, yes, it makes sense to open and try and see what happens. Because when I joined Malt, we had a very different way of scaling than what we have today. And if you have read my article about malt.com and you've heard me talk about malt.com, which is our international marketplace, that was my way of influencing the way in which the company operates. And it goes completely against, or what people would think goes against localization and more towards globalization. And it's not one or the other. It is what globalization can help you see that you need to localize. So yeah, I love that topic. I could talk about it forever, but I think if I had to summarize it, to me, ready, or what scaling really is not how many markets you're in or how many languages you're operating in, but how prepared you are for the next market, for the next language.
Well, I think we are coming to an end, but you talked before about women in localization and the mentorship program. And I know you also go to conference, you're active in the community. I think you also teach at the localization community. Sorry, Localization Academy. I mean, why all that matters to you alongside a demanding in-house role that I know you already have? I mean, like, how can you do all that? I mean,
I don't sleep. No, I'm kidding.
no, I bet you don't, because I don't do that much and I sleep not as much as I should. So probably you don't.
No. So to me, and I mean, I guess I'm also very lucky. The company where I am, your external contributions and what you do externally in terms of your own expertise is seen as part of your development and your contribution to the visibility of the company. So today I'm here and I'm here talking on behalf, or like I'm mentioning Malt, and so that is good for the company as well. So they see it as yeah, go ahead, go and talk, go and speak about what you know. You are an expert, and you can say, look, this is how we do it in our company, and you can help other companies or adapt the same type of structure or think about how they're doing things and maybe come up with questions that they didn't have before. So I think in terms of time, luckily I do a lot of it or part of it in my work time, because to me, this is part of my work. Um, Doing, talking in podcasts, conferences, teaching, mentoring, it's part of being in the industry. So it's not like a separate thing to me. And of course, I'm giving back to the community, which is something I really care about. But then you also start conversations that, I mean, I'm alone in my company in terms of localization. So who is my sounding board if not the community out there, right? If not you, when we talk about now in this podcast and we're having a conversation and you're sharing your insights about when the internet started, or if we have a conversation before we start recording, when we meet in Dublin for Log World. And that those conversations I can't have inside my company because I am a one-person localization manager, and I need that expertise knowledge from people doing it somewhere else. So that is also value that I bring them into my company. So I go out there, I talk about what I do, I hope to help, but I'm also maybe I explain the way in which I'm doing one thing and they validate that. There's another person that says, yes, we're doing it exactly the same and it works, Teresa. You're at the first stages, but we're already finishing that. And I can tell you that it works. And so I know, yes, okay, so I'm going in the right direction. Or maybe they tell me, no, actually, we did exactly what you're doing and we got it wrong here, here, and here. So be careful with that. And I bring that back to my company and I try to do it better. So there is, of course, the giving back, which I really care about, but it's not like because you are giving, you're not getting anything in return. It's like a give and take. And sometimes when you teach as well, you're forced to explain things that you would normally just do in autopilot because you know about it, so you just do it. And when you're forced to explain it to someone that is learning or that is starting, you're also forced to think, why am I doing this? And it might change the way in which you want to do something moving forward. And so this has happened to me as well. Honestly, I think everyone should do it. Everyone, you don't need to be like on a stage or running a course, or it can be a conversation with someone earlier in their career where they're like still unsure about which direction to go, or it can be joining a community discussion, it can be when you go to a workshop and then everyone is silent. Could be opening your mic and giving your perspective. And I mean, honestly, the industry, we have a big industry, but it's still small enough that these relationships that we build, uh, they really matter. They really shape the way in which we work.
Well, I can let our audience know from a first person perspective that Teresa is very knowledgeable and she is a great speaker in case anyone ever needs someone to talk about localization at their events. So that's just my personal opinion.
Thank you for the endorsement.
Well, that's the end of the show. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience before we go?
Yes, as I was thinking about this, and I had like a million things that I thought I really wanted to close this with, but I think there is something very important that is happening uh, today in our industry. Things are really changing. The competition is becoming fierce. There are less openings for the same amount of professionals that we were before. And this community that is so giving and so caring, I hope it stays the same. I hope that if you are in a difficult situation, that you can still perceive this as a caring and sharing and helpful community, and not as, the enemy, the competition. And sometimes we see the market so difficult today that we get into a more of a defensive mode. And I would just say, let's not do that. Let's stay human and empathetic. The people around you, around us, are navigating the same uncertainties that we are, and maybe more difficulties than we are. The technology is just going to keep evolving. It's not going to stop here. The market is going to keep changing and shifting and maybe getting a little bit more difficult even. but how we treat each other through that change and through that uncertainty, whether we compete or whether we lift each other up and we support each other. That is a choice that we make every day as humans. And I think it's the most important one. So I would encourage everyone to stay human and empathetic and supportive of each other in this community and in all communities, of course, not only localization.
That's a great message, Teresa. Well, so that's the end of today's show with Teresa Toronjo. Please make sure to tune in again to see and or to listen to the next VistaTalks show, where we will be discussing more interesting topics with interesting people from all around the world. Thank you so much, Teresa.
Thank you.